Hi you guys. I've had several people ask me to do another tutorial on how I made the metal roses. I know I did one on my channel on how to make these little small ones, but I don't think I ever did one for how to make the large ones. So the large one's what we're going to make today. And these are made out of recycled beverage cans, or you can find is fine. So this is going to be a lengthy tutorial, so let's get started. And I've done most of the prep work pre-done, but just to show you how to cut your Coke cans, clean them out really good. You want the sticky out. I'm using my Timmy scissors because they cut through just about anything, and they've got a good sharp tip. So I'm going to just, right where the ridge of the can is, you're going to poke a hole in there. Be real careful because this metal is super sharp, and the last thing you want to do is cut your fingers. So this is not something that you can do with children. I am sorry, but you just probably shouldn't. And these little metal pieces that are fraying off of here are very sharp, so please be super careful when you're doing this. And it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to wear a little bit of a rubber glove or eye protection while you're doing this too, just in case. And I always have a paper towel handy because there's usually where I clean the cans, there's a little bit of water still left in there. It looks like I got this one pretty clean. It's just really wet. So all I do is take a paper towel and just kind of dump it off and blot it out. I don't want to stick my hand in there because these edges are super sharp. So don't resist the temptation to do that. Then I'm going to take, and I'm sorry about the glare, but it's an aluminum can. I don't know what I can do about that. So cut straight down one of the sides, and then you're going to flip it around, and you're going to cut the bottom off. Again, be super careful. These edges are so sharp. So now this is what you have. You're going to toss this. Now this edge that's not so clean, what I would do is just take my scissors and I just kind of trim it back up again, because I don't want those rough edges going through my Cuttle Bug or my, my die cutting machine and ruining them. Then you're going to take, and this is where you can take your paper towel and just kind of dry them up if they're wet on the inside, and just kind of flatten them out. Now they're not ever going to be completely flat because this tin is, or this aluminum has, molded to a circle. Then I'm going to take my die and I'm going to use my Tattered Rose from Tim Holtz. Use your punches, your Cricut, your any die that you have that's a flower shape. This will work. All of you are familiar with Tim Holtz started the Rose Revolution, where we were all hand making roses. So it's the same exact technique, it's just your medium has changed to aluminum. So basically you're just going to cut this down until you have the desired number of flowers. It usually takes 2 cans to make 1 flower. I've already done it. I've already got my Tattered Rose shape here. I've pre-colored them because it takes so much time to do it, but I'm going to show you how I did it on a couple of these. I used today this Adirondack pitch black alcohol ink, but I have in the past to color these, I have used the copper mixatives, the gold mixatives, I've used StazOn refill ink, and then I have used spray paint. But I will tell you, if you're gonna do the spray paint, cut the flowers and then spray them, because you can't, when you cut the tin first or when you spray it first, it doesn't lay flat, so it's a bit of a challenge. Found that the lighter colors just really do not cover the paint on the can. They're too transparent. So with all of that said, I've cut my flower shapes. I've got 2 large ones and 4 little ones. I don't think we're going to use all the little ones, but that's what I got out of 2 cans. So I'm going to paint both sides with the alcohol ink, and I'm going to do several coats on the side that has the paint, because I really want a good coverage and I don't want to see the paint through. Now on this one, I think I've only done 2 coats, and you can see that it's kind of blotchy. Don't worry about that, because by the time you bend these up and mold them, you're not going to see it. So don't spend a lot of time worrying and fussing over little things like that. You're just going to put a little bit of alcohol ink and pounce this on there, and turn directions back and forth with your applicator so that you don't get streaks or anything. You're pouncing. And it's not going to give you, like I said, it's not going to give you complete coverage the first pass. Now we're going to put that to the side and we're going to do another flower. We're going to start with the little one. And I have one here that has a blunt edge on it where it didn't cut all the way out. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to cut off one of those petals. And you're going to toss this one. You don't need it, so toss it. Then the next one, you're going to cut off 2 petals. Okay, on the next one, you're going to kind of come in just a bit on each one of these petals. Not a lot, just a bit. Okay, and this one I don't think we need, so I'm going to just set it to the side. Okay, so now is the flowers naturally curl like this. Well, that was the bend of the can. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that that bent edge is down like this. And you're going to be kind of forcing it in the opposite direction of the way it naturally bends. And the reason for that is that the painted part of the can is on this side. So if that's the case, if the paint should scratch off as we're doing our bending and molding, we don't want that red to shine through, or whatever color it is to shine through. So you want that to stay to the bottom. So I'm going to flip them all over so that they are all going in the correct direction, so I don't have to worry about remembering that before I get started. Then you're going to start with the petal that you've cut 2 off of. And you're going to take it with I find that using something like a bamboo skewer or a toothpick is the easiest way to get it to mold. And you're just going to kind of take your fingers and just kind of work it in like this. And you're going to take this toothpick and you're going to roll it around the toothpick. To get it, I take and use the hot glue for my temporary bond, and then squirt like some glossy accents into the crevices, and that helps it bond, you know, if you leave it overnight. So I'm going to take and I'm going to cut the bottom of this off, this tip, so it will sit flat inside of my next flower piece. And be careful of these pieces because they're super sharp as you're molding this. Be very careful. That I had cut 2 off, and I'm going to pull it around and nest the cut petal, the cut sections inside of each of their counterparts over there. Just like you do with the Tim Holtz paper tattered rose tutorial that he taught. It's the same exact thing. The only difference is with the metal you have to be careful because the edges are sharp, and it doesn't mold as easily as paper. And I'm taking my fingers and I'm kind of pushing up on the center of the petal, and then I'm taking and pinching down on the sides a little so that it gives it more of a triangular shape on that petal. Just giving it a little more shape, personality, what I have. Now this is where my glue is going to come in. I'm going to take this and I'm going to put a liberal amount of glue, because remember, hot glue doesn't stick to metal. And remember in science class when you said you'd never use these classes again? Well, guess what? Aluminum gets hot. It transfers heat. And remember, we learned that in I don't know which class it was, but one of them science classes. We learned that. So be careful if you're using hot glue or epoxy glue, because aluminum does transfer heat, so they stay very hot. Now when I put that down inside of there, I'm offsetting those petals just a bit so that I have a little bit of a petal between petals kind of thing going on. So there we go for that one. Now we're going to go to the one where we only cut 1 petal off, and we're going to do the same process. Pull it over, pinch it down so it holds in place. And be careful not to burn not to cut yourself. Oh, and I also cut 1/3 of the large flowers. I ended up thinking maybe I might need 3. So I went ahead and cut a third one off. Okay. I'm liking it. I'm liking it a lot. Okay. Now we're going to take this one and we're going to cut a little bit off this cone shape down here at the bottom, just so it sits nice and flat inside of my next shape. And I'm going to put just a spot of glue right there. And hold it for just a second until it bonds. Okay, now I'm going to stick this one down inside of here. Lots of glue. Remember, this flour is going to get hot, so work fast. Don't use a low temp glue gun either, because I don't think the low temp glue would stick to this metal at all. Okay, so that's down in there, and just holding it until it gets good and bonded. And notice how some of that paint is kind of coming off, but that's okay, because that gives our flower a little bit of character, and that's why we kept our petals, you know, going towards the bottom, so that as that peeled off, we didn't see the design from underneath. So that's in there really good. Now we're going to start with this one. We're going to cut the base off of this one again. Get it flat. And on this one, we're just going to kind of pull it up a little bit. We're going to snip, I don't know if, let's see, we snip this in just a bit on each petal. I don't remember if I did that or not, but on this particular one that I picked up, it's not. And I think I got it going in the wrong direction. Let me go up this way, pull these down. And I'm just kind of lifting them and tucking them down, just like that, to form a little cup. Now I'm going to take that petal and I'm going to put it right down in the center of there. I'm going to fill this up with glue. A lot of glue in there. Now, if you wanted to just do some medium roses, you're done. You don't have to do anything else. But if you want them to be a little bit larger, then we need to move on. This is hot, hot, hot. Okay, so now we're finished with that one if we want to finish. Now here we go. We have these petals. The first one, what you're going to do is they need to be, there's just, it's too big of a ratio between this size and this size. So the first one, I'm going to cut it down just a bit. I'm going to kind of follow along the shape of what the tattered rose has. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but, you know, just kind of keep it tattered. That one might need to come down just a bit. Okay, so now it has a little bit better, you know, it's a little more balanced, I think. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to kind of pull these up and cup them in. Pull these petals up. So we're kind of making a little cup. Then we're going to pull this back, just like we did on the other flowers, pinching the edges, pull them up and pinch them back. And you're just going to get them good and tight so you don't see any of those gaps. Okay, just like that, and then this is going to sit inside of there. So we're going to put just a bit more glue right here. And we're going to set this, offset the petals a bit. hold it for just a minute. Now we're going to move on to the next one. And again, we're going to pull it up. And see a pattern here? You just keep going like this until the flower is as full as you want it to be. As many layers as you want. And again, you could even trim this one again. You know, trim those petals back a little bit if you wanted to. Just like we just did with the last one. And keep it like even a smaller size than the large. But bigger than the medium flower. Hope that made sense. Sometimes I think I'm talking to a wall. I don't know, I just talk to myself. Okay, so I'm going to pull those petals in a little bit tighter. Notice the longer that they are, the petals are, the harder it is to kind of get them to form and shape down just a bit. Then we're going to put a little bit of glue in here. A generous amount of glue. And again, an epoxy glue would be so much better. E6000 and alcohol ink, glossy accents, they work, but they take a long time to bond. So when you get into the epoxies, I think it does a little bit better. And also, when you want to spray paint these, you need to make sure you use an enamel-based spray paint, because I don't believe an acrylic would stick to this. It might appear to, but it would start rubbing off. Okay, so here we go with our third one. Same thing. I'm trying to hurry. I know this is a long tutorial, but there are a lot of tips that go with it. That's why I think I never did the tutorial itself. I just did the small flowers. Okay, there we go. Our petals are getting shaped up, and we're going to stick that, offsetting it, and we have our tattered rose. Now, for added interest, put some glue down in there. A little added interest and depth. Everyone likes the gold ones. How did you get it gold? How did, you didn't use gold alcohol ink. How did you get it gold? Almost all of the flowers that I do that are metal start out with a brown or black base. I don't know if I told you guys this or not either, but the mat that I'm using is an old mat, because this metal will scratch your good mat and mess it up, and so the alcohol inks to me mess up the mat, so I like to use an older mat. Now here's our flower. It's really pretty, rosette. See? Super simple. Here's the trick for gold. You can use Rub and Buff. You can use the alcohol mixative, but this is my trick. This is a paint Sharpie post, and it's the one with the mix in it. They now make one that is like the regular Sharpies. They now make this one, so I haven't tried this one to see. This is what I like this one because it's wet. So this is what I do. I put some on my mat. Just squeeze it out on my mat. Generous amount because it dries pretty quick. What I do is just kind of come over and pat that into those flowers, leaves. And see how it's turning it gold? This also is great if for some reason you got your flower going in the wrong direction and you can see that red paint from the can or the paint from the can. This will help cover that up too. Look at that, the difference in the sizes, and the cool thing is it gets your fingerprints on there, so it kind of makes it look like veins in the flower. And you could use those there's some other paint pens out too. You could use those as well. I like the way the Sharpie looks. And I didn't have, when I came up with the idea of the Sharpie, I did not have any kind of Rub and Buff at the time. Now the only thing I have left to do is to go back into some of those little crevices and do a couple of spots of glossy accents and then let it sit overnight for that glossy accents to bond, and this thing is good to go on any of your projects. And if you feel like you got just a bit too much gold on there, then you can go back over it with your alcohol ink to cover some of that gold back up. But I'm liking this. That's how I did them. And then, like I said, you can just come back with some of your alcohol ink if you wanted to. Not that. And tone it down a bit if you find that it's just a bit too bright. But this is what I did. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. Thanks for hanging with me through this long video. And if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks.